Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play In School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's episode has us returning to the great state of Minnesota to talk to Adam Barta, the founder of Blizzard Elite Baseball. Words like culture and values get thrown around a lot in sports these days, but it's not something that can be faked. Listening to Adam discussing what he calls the Blizzard Big Five absolutely blew me away. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. All right, welcome back to Travel Ball Talk. Grab your jackets, grab your beanie caps. We're heading back up to the great north of the country. We're heading back to Minnesota. Last time we were there was with our good buddy Steve McQuiggan. Today we're heading up to talk to Adam Barta, head honcho with Blizzard Elite Baseball. He's out in the Twin Cities. He's up by St. Paul, Minnesota. Adam, I appreciate you coming on today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're not putting on the beanies quite yet, but we're getting there in Minnesota, that's for sure.
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to Steve McQuiggan. He actually spoke very highly of you and actually kind of put us in contact. So I love how the Minnesota guys are sticking together up there. Love it.
Yeah, Steve. First of all, Steve's a good dude. Like I've known those guys for for quite a while, and he's a really down-to-earth guy, a motivated guy, a good baseball guy, just a good all-around human being. So in the baseball world, which is can be ego-filled a little bit sometimes. There's
stop it.
I think it would surprise some people to know that like a lot of coaches are just good baseball guys, and Steve's one of those good baseball guys. And even though I guess technically we're competitors, like we get along and we hang out every now and then, and Steve's a good dude. So I got a lot of respect for him, and I know it goes both ways, and there's a lot of those guys out there too. So
all right, well, if it's somebody's first time listening and they're wondering who we're talking about, that's Steve McQuiggan with the Minnesota MASH, and you could go to just go to where you found this podcast and scroll back a handful of episodes, and you'll find him and get to learn about what's going on with the Minnesota MASH. But today we're going to learn about what's going on with Adam and with the Blizzard Elite out there in St. Paul. But before we talk about Blizzard too much, I want to kind of find out a little bit about you, Adam. So why don't we hand the mic over and just give us maybe your background in the baseball and in this baseball business world a little bit.
Oh boy. Okay. How long is your podcast for? I'll try to nutshell this for the listeners so they don't get too bored. But I graduated in 1995 from a little town called Lake Crystal, Minnesota. It's about an hour and a half south of the Twin Cities. Played junior college ball at Bethany Lutheran. Now it's a Division III 4-year college. When I went there, it was a JUCO, a Division I JUCO, and then from there had a lot of different opportunities, but found my way up to St. Scholastica up in Duluth, Minnesota. I went on a handful of visits, and sort of made a choice that I didn't think I was going to make, and it really revolved around the head coach there, John Baggs, who has passed away just over 10 years ago now. But my recruiting visit there was just amazing, and chose St. Scholastica and played there for a couple more years. I coached there for a couple more years in 2000, 2001, and then came down to the Twin Cities. I coached at Concordia St. Paul for Lunch McKenzie for a year in 2002, and then sort of got into the real world as a marketing rep at a health management company called Stable Health Management, who is an awesome company I worked for. But during that time, I started giving some camps and a few lessons here and there, and sort of found out sort of my true passion. So I literally walked into my boss's office one day and said, "Hey, I quit. I'm running 3 one-week consecutive camps, and I know I can't take that much time off of work, but listen, I'm going to try to make this a business. If I fall on my face, can I come back and have my job? And they said, yes, of course, which was one of the greatest things that was ever said to me, because it sort of gave me the confidence to like go try and go fail. And I never went back. And 16 years later, here I am. I'm running an academy, and I get to sling a fungo every day. So I've been pretty blessed from the get go, and surrounded myself with good people, and I'm pretty fortunate. So that's the mini history of me. There's a lot in between, but that's sort of the bullet point from start to finish.
When you tell that last part about going in to basically tell him you're quitting, you know that I think sometimes people are scared to have a conversation like that, and that type of conversation can come up in a variety of different ways. But at the end of the day, I think that if it's somebody who cares about you, they're going to want you to go do what's best for you, right? They're not going to begrudge your decision. They hopefully will support you. And if they don't support you, then how much do they actually care about you? And where my mind goes with this is you see it right here in the travel ball world, where if a kid goes and works out with somebody different, or if a kid goes and wants to go play for somebody different, there's it's this awkwardness of the conversation. It's this sometimes a jealousy that they're leaving me for another program. And at the end of the day, man, if they actually care, then they're going to want you to go and be successful and support you. So that's awesome that guy, was that supportive for you. Do you see that guy anymore? You seen him in the last couple decades?
It was a woman. Her name was Chris Zitzman, and I will see her literally like once every 5 years. So my aunt, who got me that job, invited her to her wedding. That's probably the last time I saw Chris, and I remember walking up to her because I never told her that. I told her at my aunt's wedding, which was just a couple of years ago. I had said, "Listen, I don't know if you knew what you gave me, but you gave me that sort of empowerment to take that leap of faith, because I was freaked out to do it, and you've cared enough to say like, yeah, go for it, and if it doesn't work out, you can come back." And I was I got a chance to tell her that. I should have told her that right away, but yeah, she was. It made her pretty happy. It put a smile on her face. So we had. I got to say thanks, and I've said thanks to her many times. But I sort of sat her down and told her like what you did that day when I said I was leaving was a big deal. So it was pretty neat.
That's kind of cool. I'm glad we talked about that a little bit. So. When you left the corporate world and you start running a couple of these little camps, how does that couple little camps transition into what became Blizzard Elite, and sort of how did that look and feel?
Yeah, it really, it started with any sort of self-made business. It just was a word of mouth, and it's two dads bringing their two kids in, and then those two dads told two other moms and dads, and it sort of filtered from there. And we didn't do any teams at the beginning. I mean, the teams weren't even really a thing. When I started the academy in 2003, it was just getting lessons and running camps and just helping kids out. And such a big piece of that, what it turned into, which I really love and care about, is like helping the kids off the field too. And at that time, it really wasn't about kids getting recruited. I didn't work with a lot of high school kids. I worked with a lot of younger kids. So it was a lot about building them up and giving them confidence and giving them self-esteem and helping them learn how to make good decisions off the field. And I think parents recognize that, and the kids, regardless of their skill level, they started coming into the academy because they just felt good about being in the academy. And the lucky thing that I had at the time was just I had good people working with me, and at that time I wasn't even a boss. I was just some knucklehead giving lessons, and I had asked a couple of my buddies, "Hey, would you help me give lessons?" So there's no the organization of employees and HR and things like that. It was just, a couple of guys in a cage, and I was really fortunate to have other good people, to my left and right helping out. And it sort of grew into, now I got to hire 2 more instructors and 3 more instructors. And it just sort of grew organically, which I wouldn't do it any other way. Just because it's sort of how you build a really strong foundation to what you believe in. And so that's sort of the foundation we have then is sort of the foundation that we have now. I mean, it all starts and ends with relationships. It really does. I know that sounds super corny, but any team that's successful, and you can define success in a lot of different ways, but any team that's successful, it usually starts with the people, the people and the culture and the people you surround yourself with and the people who are in your program.
Yeah. I'm really fascinated with the sort of the foundation part of this story and other stories like yours. Do you remember when you signed your first lease for real estate?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Were you sweating a little bit? Tell me about that.
Yep. It was interesting. It's an interesting story because I had a gentleman by the name of Doug Joseph who sort of mentored me at a young entrepreneurial career where I didn't know what I was doing, and so he sort of walked me through so this Doug Joseph gentleman he owned another business that was in a warehouse, and that warehouse was where we started the academy, where I started the academy with turf and a cage and lights. And, he had said hey, I will help you out because you're coaching my kids and this, but it also comes at a price. And that was very intimidating. And so when he wrote the numbers down, which I look back and they were embarrassingly low, hey, we want you, $500 a month. And then your busy months are going to be $2,000 a month. And that was really intimidating because I was like, oh my God,
of course,
where am I going to get that money? I didn't have a business.
Yeah.
Looking back though, I think he knew that the business had legs only because of the energy in there. And at the very least, the business could pay for itself, and so, to answer your question, signing the lease and making that agreement at the time, it was very, very intimidating. Looking back, I laugh at it because the lease I have now at my current facility, which is over 10,000 square feet, and we just put up another facility in Edina, which is another 4,500 square feet. I mean, those numbers can be intimidating. I look back at the first lease, I'm like, man, it's like buying M&Ms at the candy store relative to what it is now, So. Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that very clearly, having that conversation in his office.
It's listen, it's a reality of this industry. I think some outsiders get upset that at the end of the day, this thing, it is a business, right? And they get mad that some people are making money off of kids playing baseball. Here's the thing. If you can't pay the bills, if you can't run the business well, then you no longer can help kids, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just the long and short of it. So it is a business, but it's a very positive business. That this industry that we're in, I think everybody can go to sleep feeling good about what they did today.
Well, I think at the end of the day, if parents know that you're, as a business, you're doing your best to invest into their kids. We put in new turf and new lights and new nets 2 years ago in our current facility. And, 2 years later, we're putting up a facility in Edina. I mean, that's being, hopefully people see that as a reinvestment into the kids. It doesn't go directly into the pockets of the people running the academy. It's also an investment into the coaches and the mentors. I mean, now I have a staff of, we have 20 teams this fall, and we have about 30 coaches, and they're awesome people. I mean, our Blizzard Elite coaches, which we have 10 teams. I mean, half of those guys have been with me for almost 10 years, and those people believe in the mission and the Blizzard and the kids. And so, you do your best to serve the people that are part of your program. And you just, one of the best lessons I got from my mom was, intentions are everything. And the intention that I have for kids is just impacting them. And it doesn't mean you're not going to screw up, and it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's all with an intention of like just trying to make kids better, on the field and off the field too.
Yeah, and simultaneously a warning to the young guys or maybe guys who are thinking about putting their shingle up. You got to pay attention to the numbers. It doesn't matter how good a pitching coach you are if you can't keep the doors open. You got to pay attention to that stuff because you can no longer help people if you're out of business. So that's cool stuff, man. And so fast forward, whatever it is, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And now, how many teams do you have rolling through this place that are wearing the Blizzard Elite across their chest?
Yeah. So we have two programs in the fall and winter. We have our Blizzard Fall program. We have our Blizzard Elite program. So all of those teams practice in August. We play in our AFBL Fall League in September and into mid-October, and that's about 20 teams. And then come November 1st, our fall program is over, and then 10 of those 20 teams continue to play tournaments into the winter. November 1st, we sort of we give our kids like an 8 to 10 week break on their arms, and then we sort of build back up for a couple tournaments in January and February. So that's how many teams we have in the fall and winter. We'll have, probably 5 to 10 teams in the spring, and then probably a handful in the summer. Mm-hmm. So it's busy. I mean, we literally start fall ball tomorrow.
And
that's when we start. It'll be go time.
How young do your guys start? What age group? What's the youngest age group?
10 years old.
10 years all the way up through 17 U.
Yep, 17 U, 18 U, seniors in high school.
Got it. Cool. And you mentioned something that's a little, down here in Richmond. We're really from a travel ball perspective, we're really talking about a fall team and a summer team. But you just mentioned you got things going on in the spring. Do I assume that's the younger kids?
Yeah, it's all younger kids. So
okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the spring teams are 14 years of age and younger.
Okay, that makes sense.
All the 15-year-old kids are with their high school teams, and we don't touch those guys.
Yes,
and some of those 14-year-olds, there's a handful of, like any state, you have your super small towns. In Minnesota, especially, you have your super small towns. So it's not out of the ordinary for a 14-year-old to be playing high school baseball at some level too. So there's 14-year-olds that will play high school baseball in the spring too.
Got it. And obviously we have the same at the younger age groups. I was just clarifying if that was older or younger.
Yep, younger.
Cool. Well, let's take a short break from this call to talk about my day job, video. In 2019, if you aren't leveraging film to market your guys, you are doing them a disservice. So where do I come in? Well, filming one guy on your iPhone and texting it to coaches or posting it to Twitter is easy. But filming 25, 50, 100, or 200 is really hard. And that's why you haven't done it already. That's why smart coaches partner with Play in School. We do all the work. We come to you. We can film 100 guys in the time it would take you to film just 4 or 5. If you'd like to see every team we partner with, visit playinschool.com/teams. Contact me today to discuss the details. Now, back to the call. You and I spoke a little bit before we hit record, and we were trading some text messages. And what I usually will try and get some bullet points of things that are sort of top of mind. before we have these conversations. You sent me a pretty good laundry list of bullet points here, and I think it might make sense to talk about them and just kind of
Sure.
just mention it and let you kind of talk about what it means to you. The first bullet you talked about or you sent me was the team goals. So what does that mean? You sent me a bullet that said Blizzard Elite team goals. What are we talking about when you mention that?
Oh boy, it's multifaceted, but when we talk about our Blizzard teams in general, especially our Blizzard Elite teams, we talk about putting the best players in the state, putting those guys up against the best guys in the country. Because, as a baseball player or any athlete or any person in any profession, you know how you stack up against your circle that is in your circle, within your conference or within your town or even with your own school. You have a pretty good idea of where you stand and where you rank. And what a lot of kids and people don't have an opportunity to do is like, okay, I sort of fit into the mix into this circle, and this is where I stand. This is where I rank. But how do I rank against the Orlando Scorpions? How do I rank against the San Diego Show? And teams and players that these kids would never see. And the idea of the Blizzard teams was really to expose these kids to a different level of competition and help drive them to just become better baseball players. Like, oh wow, this is what baseball is like in Arizona, where these kids get to play outside all of the time, and this is where I stack up against those guys. And a lot of our guys stack up really well, and some of our guys see those guys like, oh my goodness, I need to buckle up and work harder. So it's a good self-check for the kids in regards to, hey, this is how other players around the country play, and this is how they act, and this is how they go about their business. And not that it's better than how we do it. It just gets them out of their comfort zone. And I think it's really important in a kid's life to I like to see how people react when they're out of their comfort zone, because it helps a person mature and helps them develop. And being uncomfortable is part of life, and the earlier you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, the quicker your development process. So that is, our tagline is that for the Blizzard program is, finding the best players in the state to play against the best players in the country. And through that, kids love it. Parents love it. They really enjoy that development piece of the team aspect. I guess the secondary aspect would be from an academy standpoint is, how do I get better at my craft? So the development piece that we have in place at the academy is just finding awesome instructors, great instructors, the best guys at what they do, and helping these guys achieve their goal, whether it be, just being a better hitter, better pitcher, fielder, whatever your craft is. And then the other piece is sort of the culture piece of it. It's our Blizzard Big Five, which is sort of what we talk about every day in practice and at our lessons and at our games, which is sort of our culture piece. That sort of takes us off the field in regards to how we teach life and how we teach baseball. And it's sort of the same thing. Our Blizzard Big Five starts with acceptance and responsibility, and telling these kids, control what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your preparation. Because in baseball, you're going to stink a lot. Baseball is a game of failure, and life, it's not easy. You're gonna fail a lot at life, and that's okay. But how you handle life is by having a good attitude and by putting forth a good effort and doing your best to prepare every single day to have a good day. And again, I know that sounds corny, but it's also something that we talk about a lot. We talk about those things a lot in our program, because it means something. And the kids really, the kids listen. Our kids' heroes are the older kids in our program, and the kids look up to our coaches, and it's really that sort of sense of family. So the other part of the Big Five is loyalty to your faith, family, friends, and to your teammates, and playing baseball with humility, and going about your business with class, having good body language. I mean, teaching kids how to shake hands and to make eye contact and to not wear white tube socks when you wear a suit to a wedding. Right? Just small things like that sound stupid, but also like kids don't know that, so just teaching them those like little weird things that like, oh, okay, I actually have to squeeze somebody's hand when I shake their hand. That's a big deal. Making eye contact and, teaching them how to interact. We all know social media is a big piece of this world, which is great, and it serves a huge purpose in terms of communication. But also, like when we go out to dinner or when we go out to lunch, I know with my team, like I haven't put all their cell phones on the table so they can actually talk to each other. They're not talking to other humans outside the restaurant. They're actually talking with their teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of our number 4, which is a synergism, which is basically team chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Building up that team type of atmosphere. And then Kaizen is our 5th one, which is just getting better in small increments every day. As a baseball player, you can't go from throwing 80 to 95 in 2 weeks. You have to. It's just little increments every day that you're working to get better at. So sort of stress those 5 points. We don't go over all 5 of them every day, but it's just part of the culture and within our language at practice and games that we try to get through to the kids. And that message has been very consistent since I started in 2003, because that's sort of how I live my life, so those big 5, it's sort of how I do things. And I don't know, for whatever reason, people gravitate towards it. So it makes a lot of fun.
This big 5 is really fascinating. I don't know if I'm going to give it the right title, but this would almost be kind of like a mission statement of sorts.
Oh, yeah.
And what I'm thinking of is they're listed here on your website. I found the spot. It's down that left-hand bar on the menu, and they're listed big bold letters. You said you don't talk about them every day, but are these things that you are talking about on a fairly regular basis, through practices and workouts?
Absolutely. With our older kids, we talk about, like, especially with our high school kids who are getting recruited or even being scouted by pro teams, like, if a pro team comes and sees you, it's a pretty good chance that they've seen you a handful of times and they know that you're good, right? The college coach knows that you're good. What a college coach needs to see and what a pro scout needs to see at some point is how do you react to failure? How do you deal with getting screwed over by an umpire who made a bad call? You're safe and he calls you out. Like, those things, human error happens, and that's fine. How are you going to react to that? Are you going to put your head down and run back to the dugout? Are you going to chuck your helmet? Are you going to throw a hissy fit? Like, those things that's a big deal, because that can get you crossed off the list.
Yeah. And
so we just talk about effort. I mean, just simple things about effort. And we try to give examples of, everyday life, how that effort can impact you positively, even when you fail. You hit a 5-hopper to the second baseman, man, you better be a hard 90 from home to first, because you can control that. And that your teammates want to see that too. Your teammates want to see you making an effort to compete for the team. That makes the team stronger when you hit a 5-hopper to the second baseman and you run your tail off from home to first, because the guy hitting after you is going to be like, man, my teammate just hustled his butt off. Like, I better do the same thing. And all of a sudden that creates team chemistry. So the conversation, again, it becomes organic. Then people start understanding it in a way of examples, like, okay, that's my effort. This coach is watching me. And, even small things like, hey, your parents don't hand Gatorades over the fence. Like, figure out your Gatorade situation before the game. Like, just small things like that.
Yeah.
It all, everything counts. That's a big deal. So
yeah, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat.
Yeah.
If I get a random parent, a random player, and a random coach from inside the organization, and I say the word Blizzard Big 5, what's the chance that all three of these random people at least know the concepts? They might not list it, verbatim off the top of their head, but do they know that phrase, Blizzard Big Five?
100%. I mean, there's no question, because we talk about it in our parent meetings. We talk about it at practice. We put 100%. They'll know. If they don't know it verbatim, they'll know, like, oh yeah, Blizzard Big Five. This is how they know it as sort of, this is how we do things, which, quite frankly, any good baseball team does all of these things. They might not define them like I do, but any good organization, any good business, any good family, they live by these things. And so that's why you talk about it, and then you preach it, but more importantly, you show it. You live by it. And so when kids see the coaches living by it, it makes it a lot easier for them to, like, okay, this is how we do things. You know, kids, when failure happens, when there's a bad call on the field, young kids typically look to three people to see how they react to adversity. They'll turn around, they'll look at mom and dad. Is mom and dad throwing their arms up in the air, yelling at the umpire? They'll look at their coach. How's my coach reacting to a bad situation, a bad call, a tough situation in the game? And they'll look to their teammates. This
is amazing stuff, and I just want to jump in here while I'm thinking about this. Yeah. If people might, if you have one team, and you're the head guy running one team with 15 or 20 players, this stuff becomes easy, right? Because you're the guy talking about it. But the problem is when you have 20 teams, and then when you have 50 teams, and you got 500 people coming through the facility, and so I want to just kind of like warn those people who may be rolling their eyes right now and think that talking about it may be a better word than mission statement. These might be core values, I think is probably a better way of putting it. But if you're rolling your eyes at these core values, then you're not thinking about the importance of scaling. I only personally know one other organization that hammers home core values like this. And I saw them kind of getting poked at a little bit one time on Twitter. Like we said, we're in a love-hate relationship with Twitter, but they got poked at a little bit, and I came to their defense because what some of these other coaches were missing were that they were used to speaking about one team, where this particular person wants to run an organization with 200 teams across the country. And if you don't have a tight value system that every single person knows up and down the chain of command, from the leadership to the players to the parents to the coaches, then the kid playing on one team and the kid playing on the other team, they might wear the same uniforms, but it's a completely different thing. And I made the point that Amazon didn't get to Amazon by not the size and scale of Amazon 2019 by not having a tight value system in place. When it was Steve Jobs in a garage, it didn't need to be preached every day. But when you get to a 50 or 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 employees, you darn right know that they're talking about what their values are. This is awesome stuff. If people want to find it, you go to the BlizzardEliteBaseball.com and you find Blizzard Big Five. And I don't think I would have clicked on that tab had we not spent so much time talking about it. Very good stuff, man.
No, thanks for saying that. That's really nice of you to say. And just as a quick follow up to how do you have 20 teams? How the heck do you relay that? That takes time too. I mean, it doesn't mean that's going to be. Doesn't mean that coaches aren't going to screw it up at some point. I mean, we all make mistakes. It goes back to what are your intentions? What are your intentions as a coach? What are your intentions as an organization? And so as time is sort of filtered on, like I said, really lucky to have coaches who have been with me for a long time. And, a huge piece of the player culture is the coach's culture. And my wife and I have all the coaches in our program over to our house once a month. And
wow.
My wife cooks dinner and I entertain. And like on Saturday, we will have 26 coaches at my house with their wives and their kids if they have them. And
that's amazing. That's amazing.
And we have I have a little speech that I might give for 30 seconds and tell them how important they are to me and remind them how important they are to the kids that they're coaching. And, it's not a business speech. It's just sort of like, hey, you guys have no idea the impact that you have on your kids, and I really appreciate it. And this is, they've been, some of these guys have been doing it for a long time, but it is important that they hear it over and over. And that's who they are too. I mean, they're good people. I don't need to really talk them into teaching this stuff, because the people who work for me, and I should say work with me, they all come from the same cloth. They're just all good people, so that's a huge piece of it is the coach's piece. And so I try to create that culture once a month over at the house. And that's always a good time, to have the families over.
Look for other travel ball organizations to start doing monthly cookouts at the head honcho's house. I've never heard that, and I love it.
Oh yeah. My wife, thank God, she likes to cook and loves to cook. She loves to cook. And so, to me, like if I threw the get together, I would order 15 pizzas.
Yeah, of course, I would too.
My wife Heidi, like this Saturday, where she's making tacos and rice, and so it's this big Mexican buffet feast, and she doesn't let me in the kitchen, which is awesome.
Yeah,
I do it. She points and I do. She just loves to cook, and I assist. But yeah, we love to entertain, and it's just a great thing for the coaches, because the coaches, it can be a grind, right? Coaching can be a grind, but it's a passionate grind, and so to give back a little bit to the people who you're working with, it's an important piece of any just business in general, any team.
And it, to go back to this, these bullet points that you texted me, where you have a bullet point that says our coaches, and next to it literally says family, and that's pretty awesome, because you know what families do? They get together and break bread and have meals and drink wine and watch football and have fun. And probably fight and argue and make fun of each other too.
You got all that stuff. And what's really special now, Rich, is that some of the, what I've been, just the biggest compliment that I can get in my life, which has been really special these last like 3 or 4 years, just because I'm older, I guess, that, I've been to like the weddings that I go to now aren't of my friends, because all my friends are married for the most part. I'm going to my alumni weddings, and I'm getting invited to these weddings, and it's one of the most flattering things in the world to receive an invite from Rob Mouton and Tyler Wolf and David Goggin and Logan Shore. And, I'm going to these kids' weddings and just to have a little piece of their life, if you impacted 0.5% of their life, you feel like, it really makes you feel good about what you're doing, That's
fun. That's fun. So listen, we've talked about the team stuff a little bit, and we're going to talk more about I think travel ball from a high level in a bit. We mentioned your facility, not just facility, but facilities. You've opened 2 of them now, so that you can handle your guys. But there's another little piece of the puzzle I wanted to mention. When I landed straight on the homepage of your website, there's actually a decision to be made about whether to go into the Blizzard side or whether to go into another side that's called Scout Stop. And as I look through that appears to be sort of the event side of your business. You want to talk about that a little bit and and what's going on over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the genesis of Scout Stop sort of came from when we first started the academy. So Johnny Anderson, who is my former business partner, we're best friends. He lives out in Texas right now. We ran a showcase one of our first years that we ran the academy. We had no idea what we were doing. Just a couple of knuckleheads like saying, "Hey, how do we get all these coaches at the facility to watch all of our guys?" And it was just the showcase. It was just an academy showcase, and we didn't really have a name for it. And as we started doing this every year, we would have pro scouts say, "Hey, could you have a private workout for your potential draft guys?" So we had a little private workout for our potential draft guys, which is about 8 to 10 guys every year. And then we're like, okay, you know what? There's not really anywhere that competitive to play in the fall. Let's run our own fall league. And so all these things started adding up, which weren't really Blizzard things. They were more just an offering to people who needed an outlet for, hey, showcasing themselves or playing in a league. And, when we started Scout Stop 10-ish years ago, 11 years ago, there's other teams looking to play fall games. Like, you know what, we can manage this. We can do this. We can schedule. We're organized enough.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the genesis of Scout Stop. Jesse Tolson, the guy who works for me, has sort of been my number one for the last 11 years, actually came up with the name. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty cool name. And so we went with it, and we started providing leagues and tournaments and showcases. And we even did player profiles for kids with video and scouting reports and things like that. So you hit the nail on the head. It's really our event side of what we do that isn't really specific to Blizzard. All of our Blizzard kids and teams are a part of it, but it's offered to, other club teams in Minnesota and the Midwest for our tournaments. That is a part of our business that's been really enjoyable, because it's like you said, it's more of the event side of things.
Yeah, I think you see this a little bit, like down here in my neck of the woods. You'll see, Andy Parton with the Dirt Bags. Well, the Dirt Bags is his team side, and then he runs Impact Baseball, which is his event side. Well, they'll do showcases and tournaments, and here in town, the Richmond Braves, the Tommy Mayers, and his guys they run on D1 draftable. So similar sort of thing, and it's a nice add-on if you're running teams. This is depending on what part of the country you're in, you might find that there's an opportunity to run some events like this. And it's kind of a nice complementary business, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is. It takes a little manpower. So, we weren't really able to expand it in the earlier stages of our business just because, running the leagues and even the profiles, it takes just a lot of work and a lot of manpower. At the beginnings of any business, you just don't have it. You try to become laser focused, and you slowly grow within what you can manage. And Scout Stop was sort of exactly that. It was like, we just don't have this outlet. And as we grew, and as we had more people working for us, we're like, okay, we can do this. We can delegate. Everybody's on the same page. So it's been nice. It's been nice to be able to delegate the event side of things, the showcases and tournaments and leagues, and then also stay pretty laser focused on the teams and development, which is still what we do. We want to remain laser focused on our development and our teams.
All right, that's cool. I'm glad we talked about that for a minute. I want to go back to the travel ball world and and talk about the landscape of travel baseball from the Twin Cities there. And I actually just pulled up your alumni. You got an alumni tab on here like most people do, and I clicked on 2019. You had almost 40 commitments listed. I think it was 39 commitments, and just a quick scroll through it. It seems like most of them are in state. But talk to me about what's the travel ball world in Minnesota like for you guys, and getting them to the right schools in Minnesota and beyond Minnesota.
And you're talking more from the kids in our program moving on to college. Yeah. So it's been a fun process. It's a complicated process for any kid and family who hasn't been through it for the first time. So the thing that I enjoy most about what I do is coaching, and also bridging the gap from high school to college baseball or high school to the pro side, and helping and walking players through that process. And I always tell players and parents, like, my job is the Blizzard guy is to help you learn how to make a decision. So that means making sure that you're asking the right questions of yourselves and of coaches out there and of scouts, and making sure that the information that you're getting is the right information. And so I meet with kids and meet with parents and help them ask the right questions. What's important to you in the college process? Initially, when you ask a freshman, what's your goal? Every one of them say, well, I want to play Division I baseball. I want to play for Florida. I want to play for North Carolina. And that is totally fine for a kid to say, I just want to play Division I baseball, because when they're 14, 15, they don't necessarily know
they lack information.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And so as you walk them through the process of, like, okay, do you want to live in the state of Minnesota? Do you want to could you really live in California? Could you live in Arizona? Mm-hmm. We travel to Las Vegas a couple times a year. It's awesome to go to Vegas for 4 days. Mm-hmm. Could you live in Vegas for 365? Yep. And so when they start asking themselves really pointed questions, you can see the look in their eye, like, I guess I've never thought about taking a plane ride back 4 times a year for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. Like, okay, that makes sense. Can I do that? And, for Midwesterners, generally speaking, they're homebodies. The Midwesterners like to be near home. That's generally speaking. So you really have to, challenge a kid in regards to, okay, you say that Arizona is your number one spot to go to. Let's talk about that for a second. Number one, can you live outside of Minnesota? Number two, what are you thinking about academics? So we really talk about 3 things. We talk about quality of life, and quality of life, there's a lot of things that surround that, but typically it starts with, okay, do you want to live away from home, near home? How big a city? How big of school? Can you handle going to school of 40,000 people? Mm-hmm. When you go to a private school where your graduating class is 63, how big of a shell shock is that going to be for you? Are you intimidated by that, or is that not a big deal? Right? And the answer is different for everybody. Yeah. But to get those kids to start having that conversation is a big, big deal. And then the academic piece is, a kid might say, well, I want to go to Stanford because they played in the World Series. I saw them in the World Series X amount of years ago. Like, okay, well, you got a 3.2 with a 24 on your ACT. That's really good, but Stanford might not be an option for you because your academics aren't there. Yeah. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So the academic piece is a part of it. And then, of course, number 3 is talking about baseball and sort of where their skill set plays, and what's important to a kid, and sort of walk them through the process of, do you want to be on a competitive team? Do you want to play right away? What are your goals as a college baseball player? And a lot of times kids will say, like, I want to play as a freshman and I want to win. So, sometimes those 2 things don't add up, because typically when you go to a team that's going to go to a World Series, there's a 21-year-old shortstop who's a draft pick, and you're 18-year-old kid from, Hodunk, Minnesota, who's really good, but you're not a draft pick. So like, oh, okay, I get it. And so you end up walking these kids through that process, which is so much fun, because you see some, great realization, like, okay, I'm getting it. I understand how the process is working. And so, helping the kids find these spots and helping them identify what questions to ask is a lot of fun. That is one of the top 2 things I enjoy about my job, which is coaching, and then the recruiting piece. I really enjoy that.
it's interesting when you
I don't know if I answered your question.
yeah, I think you might have. I think it was fun. It was a fun answer, and it kind of reminded me how fun it when you're talking about this information gathering piece, and this is that portion is so important, and it can be a long process, right? Like you know, and I always like seeing the light bulb go off when you get a parent of a kid and they say their kid's going to go, let's just pick a school. They're going to go to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's their first choice. And I mean, obviously they're very good at baseball. No question. Obviously it's a wonderful academic school. No question. So it's a great place to have at the top of your list, but I'll always respond to mom and dad by saying, oh, did you guys used to live in Nashville, Tennessee? And they said, no. And I said, you guys have family in Nashville? No. Have you ever even been to Nashville, Tennessee? No. And you can begin to see the light bulb turn on because until you've actually been there, you don't have any clue about those other things. Though, do you fit in to the school? Like we know it's a good school. We know it's good baseball. But can you live in that town? Can you live in that place? Is it going to feel good to you? Are you going to be okay being that far away from home? So watching as you're describing all those things you described, I was just having this vision of mom and dads and players having that light bulb moment where they begin to go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe I don't want to be 1,000 miles away from home.
Right.
Maybe I can't go to that school because my SATs aren't good enough. Maybe I'm not a fit for that school because I just don't play at that level. Watching the light bulb go off is a pretty entertaining experience sometimes. So tell me, I'll always ask coaches on here. First of all, I think the travel ball format that we're in right now is awesome. The efficiencies that it brings are amazing. So always ask, talk to me about the good, the bad, and the ugly. What are the things about this format that we're currently in that have been, tremendously positive for you and your players? And then what are some things that maybe you would like to see improved, or if you have ideas where you think you can, help, so talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a good question, and probably a really long answer. The awesome thing about, and I touched a little bit on it already, but when we put our teams together, especially our older teams, we make no promise of kids getting scholarships. It's about the development. It's about the competition. It's about getting outside your comfort zone. So I think it really allows players who are from different communities join in on the same team in creating new relationships and learning how to play together with people you don't know. I think that's a huge positive. Getting outside of your comfort zone and playing teams from around the country, I think it's extremely positive. I don't, even 10 years ago, it wasn't, there wasn't a ton of outlets where, like, hey, I bet you there's a tournament in California. There wasn't a ton of options in California. Now you have a lot of options. The positives of doing that is you expose yourself to other places in the country. I mean, just being a well-rounded kid. It's like a really advanced, it's like a really fun field trip, right? I mean, so the whole point of field trips in school is like, hey, I get to go to the zoo. I get to see things I've never seen before. And that's a big piece of what I think club baseball in general provides is you get to see things and be around teachers that you're just not exposed to. I think when you can put kids in a position to have great coaches and great mentors and great big brothers and just good human beings, I think that might be the number one value of club baseball is if you have a coach like Lonnie Robinson and Eddie Gerald and Tyler Wolf and Corey Gleeman, Jesse Tolson, all guys in our program who have coached forever, Trig Peters, who all have different backgrounds, but they all have their own story to tell and to share. And when sports in general, that outlet is there through the coaches. The coaches are able to tell their story to help these kids just in life. And I think the club baseball world, that is awesome. I think that is one of the most special things about club baseball and just about sports in general. So that's the really plus that club sports and especially baseball provides. The ugly is, just to go back to the recruiting side, there's just a little bit of misinformation. Sometimes kids and parents, finding somebody to trust and finding somebody to listen to and believe. I think that there's a lot of misinformation in regards to the recruiting process and what you need to do relative to what other parents are saying. A lot of times the biggest thing I get from parents, this is the biggest comment I get from year to year, is sort of the talk in the stands. And it's harmless banter. I don't want this to come off as a negative thing, but parents will say, man, you're behind. You should really go to this showcase. You're probably behind in the recruiting process. You really need to go to these events, when in fact, that's probably not the truth. You're not behind. Because what ends up happening is that kids will panic and parents will panic, and they'll sort of make rash decisions based on like, okay, oh my God, I'm behind. I have to get recruited. I have to commit. All these other guys are committing. Why aren't I committing? And you tend to make a forced and rushed decision. Really the first real decision in a kid's life, that takes time, and it is stressful. And it is a stressful, the recruiting piece.
It's not only the first big decision. I mean, because choosing between Nike and Reebok really isn't that big a decision. Right. It's not only the first big decision, but it's also one of the most expensive decisions of their lifetime. Potentially. Yep. So take your time, because it's not about being first; it's about being right. Yeah, man,
that's a really good way to put it, Rich. It's not about being first. It's about being right, and being right means you got to do your due diligence. You got to do your studying. You got to just take your time and again learn how to ask the right questions. I think sometimes players and parents will seek out the answers they want, so it fits their question. They want the answer like your kid's good enough to play Division I baseball, and sometimes they'll seek out an answer that fits that makes them feel good, rather than like, okay, here's the reality of where I'm at as a baseball player. Okay, this person told me that this is sort of where I fall into the mix. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to work harder at that. And this is the plan I'm going to be on. And the bad part is when somebody tells you not the truth, like, hey, you should be playing Division I baseball, when in fact they probably shouldn't. So, and that message comes from, several different people. And most of the time, unfortunately, most of the time it's also misinterpreted by the kid too. Sometimes the message to the kid can be misinterpreted. Yeah. Like a kid can misinterpret criticism as, hey, you're not good. You're not a good baseball player. When in fact, it's not the case at all. Say, hey, here's where you're at today, and here's where you're probably going to be at in a year or 9 months when you work this hard. Like, hey, you have the ability to be a really high-level baseball player, but today you're not. And sometimes kids misinterpret that as, well, coach just told me I wasn't a good player, so I'm just going to go somewhere else where he's going to tell me I'm good. And I think that's sometimes the negative,
It sometimes feels that when you add the baseball piece into the conversation, that really smart, well-meaning, supportive families get a little bit excited, get a little bit they like the lights get too bright for them, because you wonder, you say, listen, if a realtor came up to you and pressure sold you and said, you got 48 hours to tell me if this property that is above your budget, if you're going to buy it.
Oh boy.
Right?
It
wouldn't happen.
And you can't. Right. But unfortunately, sometimes it does. And again, by no fault of the parent or player, because they're going through it for the first time. So
right.
They're experiencing all of these things for the first time, and it can be very intimidating. And it's like, you get an offer and somebody puts a 48-hour deadline on it. You're like, man, it's a great offer. It's a great school. I should take it. Like, I know it's probably not the right decision, but it's an awesome opportunity, so I'm going to take it. And
it's so excited. It's so emotional that it's like the perfect storm. It's almost like a blizzard.
Yeah.
A perfect storm. Yeah. It's a perfect storm to make a poor decision, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you try and get these people, pump the brakes, slow down, and understand, what are the criteria you need to make a decision.
Right.
And it's you go back to these things you talked about, quality of life, the academics, the baseball fit. One thing you didn't mention, I'll throw in there, hey, your budget, right?
Oh, of course.
How many kids in our world are going above budget so that they can wear a uniform, for a couple years. And that's that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but that's a scary thing. And just to strap debt to a kid so he can go wear a uniform just because that particular school was first to the dance.
Right.
Anywho, I digress, but good topic.
Man.
Yeah. Good topic.
Yeah. The way the way I explain it to a kid sometimes where he's like, oh yeah, I get it. Is like, you ask a kid, hey, do you have a girlfriend? I'm like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. And I say, how long have you been with her? And most 17-year-old kids, I've been with my girlfriend for 6 months.
Uh-huh.
All right, would you ask her to marry you tomorrow?
Bingo.
No. It's like, okay, same thing, man. Like, you're not going to make a decision that fast.
No. I love it.
It's an odd, that's a sort of a weird
I talk in the same
conversation, but
I talk in the same exact terms. They get that.
Yeah. Yeah, they get it. It's like, well, no, of course I wouldn't. Well, you don't, you have to take your time. It's a process. And so and that's the enjoyable part about helping kids through that process is that, I have been through the process 400 times with these kids.
Yeah. And
I have to constantly remind myself that, hey, these moms and dads and kids, they're going through it for the first time. And so, it's the me being patient with moms and dads and kids. It's really, I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because for people who are in the baseball world, it's a pretty easy discussion, but it's a very complicated one for somebody who's going through it for the first time. Just like you said, Rich, like buying a house, like for a realtor, they sell houses every day. It's just what they do. But for a first time home buyer, oh my God! Yeah. We talk about the most intimidating thing in the world for a first time home buyer, right? And to a realtor, it's like, well, you just do this, you do that. It's super simple. Well, it's not really.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of having a good realtor, right?
So back to that was an awesome topic. I'm glad we hammered that. Do you see in the just the kind of zoom back out to the world of travel ball? Are there any things, maybe not specific to your guys, but just in the general state of travel baseball, where maybe you see some opportunities for improvement, something you wish could get tweaked to make things better?
Well, that's a great question. I think within individual organizations, just having consistency, the thing that, and this isn't really a Minnesota thing. This is just sort of a general thing, just like the consistency of what a program means, and why are people a part of programs? Are they a part of a program because of this and this? And sometimes if you lay out who you're about and what you're about, and this is what you're going to get, and this is the type of feel you're going to have when you're with this program, people know what they're signing up for. Sometimes when kids sign up for a certain program, you sometimes don't know what you're going to get, because it's not explained very well, because you also, unfortunately, you have a lot of baseball guys who aren't business guys, and so you have a lot of baseball coaches just running a business, and they don't know how to run a business. And so that impacts the quality of product, So I'd say it's probably more of a business thing than anything. But in terms of negative things, I don't know. That's a good question, Rich, because I haven't seen any glaring, oh my God, this is terrible. I really wish they'd make this change throughout club baseball, because the state of baseball would be so much better if it was this way. What would your answer be to that? I don't have a clear cut one, to be honest with you.
And so this isn't like a knock on any. Well, maybe besides the NCAA. I want to knock on the NCAA a little bit. I think they need to clean up. I think the NCAA has the most power to clean up the early recruiting. I think the early recruiting thing is a hot topic that's on the minds of lots of people. You described the anxiety it creates, and I'm in the camp of I really don't care at which age a kid is recruited or offered. I think you should be able to offer a fifth grader if you want to, if he's a phenom. And I think the NCAA has done little tiny things to make it look like they care or look like they're trying to help, but they really haven't moved the needle. And to me, it's a simple solution. You just when you offer, they have to sign. Just let the kids sign. I think that cleans up so why I say I don't care if they sign early. I don't care if a fifth grader sign. If a fifth grader is 6'4" left-handed and throwing 94, then yes, offer that kid. But where the problem comes in is when the mid majors who aren't even going to a regional are signing middle of the road or mediocre players in 10th grade. I don't think that helps the process. I don't think that's really positive for the game. That's one little thing where I think the NCAA could very easily tomorrow just say, hey guys, offer anybody you want, but make them sign. And here's some rules that go along with it. Right. If the program pulls a scholarship, you can only spend the money once. Okay. So if you pull a scholarship, that money's gone for a year, and vice versa. If the kid, realizes he chose the wrong place, guess what? It's just like a transfer. You got to sit a year. That's simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. Yeah. And obviously there's some what ifs that go into the details behind that. But that's for me, that's an easy one. I think one other one that would be, I think it would really help are the events, specifically the big events like down in Georgia that have 300 to 400 teams in them. The event is wonderful. It's very efficient for the coaches can see lots of kids, but the problem is it gets so watered down. Watered down. So if you could, one very simple solution, if you're listening, Perfect Game, is just create divisions. Okay, you can put 75 teams in Division A, 75 teams in Division B, C, and D. Or do it 100 teams in A, B, C, and D, and then you're done, and you put the best 100 teams or the best 75 teams in one division. And so what you have is at the 16U Worldwood Bat, you actually have 4 different tournaments going on simultaneously. I think that would help so much. But I mean, that's kind of minor, it's in the grand scheme of things. Obviously I'm in this travel ball world. I think it's mostly positive. I just, when I ask that question, it's mostly just to see if we can figure out one little tweak that might help everybody at once, and maybe give somebody the inspiration to go out and do something.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I would agree with you on that.
Let me ask you one more question, then we'll wrap up, man, because I know you got a meeting here in a little bit. Let me ask you, how do you think college coaches would describe the Blizzard players? If there was one word or a few words that kind of sum up what the Blizzard players are all about, what do you think they say?
I think I think that's a good question. I think that they're going to recruit a good teammate. I think they're going to recruit future captains. I think they're going to recruit future great employees and employers, that they're not just recruiting great baseball players. They're recruiting guys who are going to impact their team. I think if they recruited a Blizzard player, if a kid did not play at a school for whatever reason, maybe it's an injury, that kid would still be able to impact that program because he was a good kid. Because that is more important than being a good baseball player. I really believe that's what a coach would say about a program.
I love that answer. I think this is that's a great spot to just put a pin in this conversation. If folks are still listening at this point, I'll put all the links to the Blizzard website, the Twitter pages, Adam's Twitter, everything will be listed at playinschool.com/Barta. Barta is Adam's last name. It'll all be there. Adam, I'm gonna stop the recording, but don't go anywhere. I wanna we'll say goodbye in a second. So hang on right there.
You got it.
What a great conversation, by the way.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm having so much fun bringing these shows to you each week. If you'd like to recommend a coach for the show, please don't hesitate to shoot me a note at rich@playinschool.com or DM me on Twitter @playinschool. Again, my name is Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play in School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com to see some of the ways we're doing that. Or better yet, let's set up a call. Until next time, thank you for listening to Travel Ball Talk.